If you guys have not seen, pretty much full war has broken out in Mexico between the cartel and the federal government. They are out in the streets after assassinating a key cartel figure, which we'll talk about a little bit later in this video. It's basically a full-on war zone. My thoughts and prayers go out to everybody, to the amazing Mexican people who I love so much. I lived in Mexico for a while when I was younger, and I love this country dearly. It's an incredible place. A lot of misconceptions about it, but it's a really fantastic, fantastic country with amazing people. And obviously all the tourists who are trapped there right now is one of the top tourist destinations in the world. There are many people trapped there. So let's take a look at what's going on right now. Meyer Tusi says, the people doing this to Mexico today are the same people ICE agents are trying to deport from the U.S. Be more grateful to your government, liberals. That's absolutely true. In one day, look at this. It looks like an absolute war zone. Bombs going off everywhere. Cars were being torched. I have not been able to officiate any sort of final death count. We might have that in the sources here my team sent me. But it is really a balagan, really, really big mess breaking out in Mexico right now towards this country.
Pura gente, señor Mencho. Pura gente, señor Mencho. Señor Mencho. Pura gente.
These are the Mexican forces, I guess, getting ready for action against these cartels. It's probably going to be quite a few days, maybe even weeks of fighting now, unless a ceasefire is reached, because they usually do reach ceasefire agreements with these cartels. In case you need a reminder why border security is important, why you shouldn't allow 10 million people to come across the border unvetted, this is Mexico now, in front of a Costco, mind you. Yeah.
A few hours ago, Mexico killed El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and one of the world's most wanted drug traffickers. As expected, violence has now erupted across Mexico, threatening to spiral into a full-blown war. Now, this is a developing situation. The violence is still spreading across the country. So we're going to get into what we know so far as of 4 p.m. Central Time on Sunday, February 22nd, what to expect in the coming days, and what it would take for the United States to get directly involved. On that note of U.S. involvement, my understanding now from the reporting that I've seen is that the United States provided intelligence support to the Mexican military. There have not been any official statements or any reliable sources, I should say, suggesting that the United States had any more involvement than that. No U.S. aircraft overhead and certainly no U.S. boots on the ground. That's as of reporting right now. Of course, that could change. Now, to give you an idea of how significant this operation was, the Latin Times said, quote, "The killing immediately becomes one of the most consequential blows to a major Mexican criminal organization in years, both because CJNG has been widely described as among the country's most powerful and violent groups, and because El Mencho has remained a fugitive despite a years-long binational manhunt that includes a U.S. State Department reward of up to $15 million for information leading to his arrest or conviction." I don't speak Spanish. I feel like El Mencho is pretty close to what it's supposed to be, but I'm sure I'm getting that wrong in some way, and I'll hear about it in the comments. But that's who we're talking about, El Mencho, the head of CJNG. The Associated Press went into a little more detail here, saying the Mexican army killed the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, El Mencho, on Sunday, decapitating what had become Mexico's most powerful cartel. They say El Mencho was wounded in an operation on Sunday to capture him in Jalisco, and he died while being flown to Mexico City. And this is just something to keep in mind as the violence continues to escalate. This is so much more than, a street gang or a low-level gang. These guys have armored vehicles. They have rocket launchers. They have machine guns. They are not just they have a lot of drones, and that's going to be an interesting one to see how it plays out if this violence continues to spiral. And they're also very well trained. All right, so this is not quite force on force, like equal playing field, but it's much closer to that than it is, say, in the United States. If the U.S. military were to go after a gang somewhere in the U.S., not a fair fight. This is closer to a level playing field in a lot of ways. Now, the Associated Press added that the DEA considers the cartel to be as powerful as the Sinaloa cartel, one of Mexico's most infamous criminal groups with a presence in all 50 U.S. states. They say it is one of the main suppliers of cocaine to the U.S. market, and like the Sinaloa cartel, earns billions from the production of fentanyl and methamphetamines. Now, in terms of the violence that's spreading, a lot of the videos that you're seeing right now is the result of CJ&G attacks across the country. We don't have very much from the actual kill capture mission itself, but the burning vehicles, the roadblocks and such, that is the response from CJ&G. El Huaso, a great analyst over on X, whose information will be linked in the description below, put together this graphic saying he is now tracking narco-related violence in 18 states. That's how quickly this started to spiral. Now, we're seeing a wide range of what these response and attacks look like at this point. In terms of casualty figures, really not clear. I've not seen any viable reporting on that at all. Outside of the Mexican government talking about the results of that raid, everything else is just a mess, is probably the best way to put it. Don't have details on military personnel killed. We know some of them have been targeted. Don't have information on additional cartel members killed, and don't have any information on civilians caught in the crossfire. If the violence were to spread into the United States, that would be a different story. We do know CJ&G, as well as any number of Mexican cartels, have a presence in the United States. They have been violent at times, not to the level that we're seeing in Mexico right now. If that were to happen here, then we would probably see a U.S. crackdown locally. So if it happened in Phoenix, you'd see a crackdown in Phoenix. I don't know that that would necessarily translate to a U.S. operation in Mexico to go after their leadership. The big thing to watch right now is the spiral of violence. Is the state going to be able to regain control and kind of tamp this down? Or are we watching the first few hours of what could be the most violent episode in Mexico's history getting ready to play out?
And I want to take a look at this. This is the fucking cartel, guys. Look at this. This isn't Mexican Special Forces, the Army. This isn't America. This is the cartel.
Pinche 20, a ver si muy verga, te topas con nosotros. Ahí tengo desamarrados los perros, culero. Y así, voy a andar patrullando. Pues tu puta madre.
Órale, vente, hijo de tu puta madre. Bríncale a la verga. Bríncale al toro, perro.
Hijo de tu puta madre. Vas a pegar toda la verga, culero.
Gente inocente, sí, eres bien verga.
Pinche 20.
That's insane. Is that actually the cartel? Regardless of if this is Special Forces or not, the fact that the cartel has this much gear and is that well, what I've understood, they are very, very well trained. This has always been the issue, by the way, with Mexico. Even I remember when I lived there briefly, and a couple times I visited. I've been to Mexico 4 times now. It has always been one of the major issues with Mexico is that the cartel holds so much power over them. And these are cartels that are affiliated also with Islamic terrorist groups. In some ways, they do a lot of drug trafficking one to another. These people have taken politicians hostage financially, also by power, by their strength, by their imposition militarily. And this has always been the major issue with Mexico. Besides that, culture-wise, religion-wise, a lot of their values are very much Western aligned. They are an incredible country. And I don't mean to be glazing Mexico for no reason right now. I just have a lot of on-hand experience there with Mexican people, and I really love them. I think it's an amazing place, but this has been an issue, and a lot of it could be stemmed from government corruption that just hasn't ended. Even Claudia Sheinbaum now hasn't done enough to tackle government corruption, and some people would even say their current president, she's maybe making things worse. President Trump and ICE are trying to prevent USA from becoming a third world disaster. Look at Mexico right now. These are the tourist areas, which for a long time were kind of protected by the cartel, but this assassination of this key cartel figure.
So everybody is being told to leave the area right now. Here on the beach, the tiki bar is being cleared out. All of these things are being cleared out. It's being roped off right now. They're asking that everybody vacate the area and leave immediately. You can see the smoke. I don't know if you can, the smoke in the sky. But we were just walking on the beach and we saw smoke everywhere, and we're being informed that there's major cartel violence happening right now all over Puerto Vallarta. Apparently they've captured a top-ranking cartel member, and when that happens, all-out war happens. A number of cars have been set on fire, motorcycles set on fire. In fact, there were some attendees of Anarchapulco who were in a taxi cab. Taxi drivers are apparently targeted by the cartel. They were they had their car shot at. The taxi driver was murdered, and the car was set on fire. All of their luggage has been burnt, including their clothes and passports, in fact. So it's a pretty scary, dire situation right now. We're being told, do not go out at all. Do not walk in the streets. Do not get in a taxi or an Uber. Do not go to the airport. In fact, the entire airport may be shut down right now because of this cartel violence. I mean, we heard Trump mentioning a while back that he's going to go after the cartel in Mexico. Is this the beginning of that? Are we witnessing it live? I don't know, but everybody here has just been instructed to leave the area immediately. The entire beach here is being shut down. It's clearing out, and really, really intense situation going on here in Puerto Vallarta. So I'm gonna continue to document this as we do. We're gonna stay safe in our hotel. I don't know if you can see the smoke in the air, but it's all over the place. It's thinned out now in the last hour, but apparently, from what I understand, there's a whole bunch of cartel violence happening all over the city right now. We don't fly out until tomorrow, but hopefully it's not going to be an issue for us, because as it is right now, the airports might even be shut down. I hear the military is getting involved. Some of these cartel have, in the past, shot down military helicopters because they literally own rocket launchers. So this is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. Again, everybody is being forced to vacate the bar, the beach area, and smoke in the air. Major situation here in Puerto Vallarta.
And this is why you don't allow paramilitary groups to form on your borders or within your nation. The response against Hamas starts slowly. The entire world will understand what Israel has been dealing with, but you guys have to learn it the hard way. For some reason, when it happens to us, you're not willing to listen. But you'll understand slowly, when it happens like this, you'll be like, oh, wait, that's why you can't have a terrorist group with rocket launchers living on your border, because they'll blow your planes up. They'll shut down your country. Oh, that's an issue for us, right? Because we want to live normal lives. Now, here's the thing. I want everybody who's watching this right now to understand this isn't the Mexican people. This actually isn't the people of Mexico. This is not really a part of Mexican culture. It's not cartel violence. Obviously, there's an element of that, and there's gangs and stuff, but this isn't, for the most part, this is not the Mexican people. This is not like some Islamic ideology that they have rampant through their society. No. This is not the Mexican people. They are very much victims to this. This is going to fuck and hurt their economy, hurt their country, hurt their tourism sector for a long time. And also, there's a lot of tourists from all over the world currently in Mexico. So I want all of you guys, no matter how much beef you might have or feel like you might have with Mexico as a nation, don't celebrate this. This is nothing to be happy about. This is nothing to celebrate. This isn't a moment where you want to be happy. There are innocent civilians all over Mexico. I've heard that the cartel is actually looking to take hostages of tourists right now, to take them hostage, to extract money out of them, which is something that they've avoided, by the way, for many years. When I was living in Mexico and when I traveled there, it was actually a known thing that the cartel wouldn't hurt you as a tourist, especially in places like Jalisco, places like Tijuana. They wouldn't hurt you because there was like an agreement that you don't hurt the tourists, because it also brings the cartel money. The fact that they're breaking those rules now, that sort of societal rule that hasn't really been applied for a long time, is a major issue. So don't celebrate this. If you are, for some reason, happy about this, please consider the fact that many innocent people are going to be affected by this.
This is a Fox News alert. We're continuing to monitor the situation unfolding in Mexico, where the U.S. Embassy has put out a security alert for all American citizens to shelter in place. This comes amid reports of violence erupting in the state of Jalisco. Tourists at a resort in the city of Puerto Vallarta were told not to leave the resort, while photos and video shared with Fox News Digital capture billowing dark smoke clouding the skyline of the city. This frightening situation occurs after Mexican security forces say they killed one of the most notorious drug cartel leaders in their country, El Mencho, head of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. All right, so this, this comes not just in a vacuum. It comes in context of President Trump declaring the cartels foreign terrorist organizations and then taking out Maduro. Would Mexico be doing this if it hadn't been for the pressure President Trump is putting on them?
I don't believe so. I mean, I don't know the domestic politics of Mexico in depth. I know that Mexico has, every leader we've seen in Mexico has tried to find some way to, I guess, live with these cartels, maybe out of fear, maybe out of being corrupt in bed with them. I'm not sure. But I think President Trump's made it clear that we're not going to stand for it. And they're just a little bit, listen, if Democrats want us to have an open border, we might can just jump across that border going in the other direction and take care of some of these folks. And so that's been the, rather than letting the cartels in, we're going to push the door, make it open the other way and send some folks in down there. It's kind of been the threat with President Trump in this administration. We did see what happened in Venezuela, and I don't think Mexico is far off from that. I don't think we're going to try to overthrow the government, but these cartels aren't waging war. These cartels are waging war on us, not just Mexico. And for that reason, we have every right in the world to have an interest in them going away. And it seems like Mexico maybe feels empowered, maybe supported. I'm not sure what we're doing is in the shadows, but it looks like they're taking steps to correct that.
Yeah, I like that idea of open borders work both ways. That's very, very cool. Look, I forgot his name. He's
El
Mencho, that's right. Convicted in 1994, spent 3 years in prison in the U.S. and was released. And he goes back and he's like flooding the country with fentanyl. Tommy, what's going on here? Where we have these people in jail and we release them, and then they go back and when terrorists, they kill Americans. With drug cartel leaders, they go back and poison Americans. Why are we?
We've got repeat offenders on the street of every major American city, right? This feels like a running narrative. We got to end it. I think President Trump has mentioned more than once that he is more than happy to assist with President Sheinbaum, if she so desires, in dealing with their cartel problem. Now, up until now, I don't think that she's necessarily given him the green light to do so. Maybe what's going on right now will change that. I certainly hope so. But I will also say this, just to the point on the Americans that are in Mexico being asked to shelter in place at their resorts. I can't imagine how terrifying that is right now because of what's going on. And we're seeing images all over social media. I mean, it looks like a war zone because it probably is. I would also just say this. I had a friend of mine who was murdered in Mexico in Playa del Carmen about 6 or 7 years ago, just down there on a bachelor trip or a birthday vacation, murdered in the streets and left there. Mexico, in a lot of places, is not safe for Americans. And I know a lot of Americans think if they're in a resort that everything is fine, nothing can possibly get to them there. Joey and I were talking off camera. Hey, listen, there are a lot of beautiful places in the United States of America that are warm and sunny, Florida being one of them, a heck of a lot safer. So perhaps Americans should consider that, especially with what's going on right now.
And the former Dutch West Indies, which are now the U.S. Virgin Islands.
There you go.
Them from the Dutch. So, Molly, just look at the record. President Trump, he got Soleimani. He got the Abbey Gate bomber. He got the Benghazi terrorists. He got Maduro. And now, through pressure on the Mexican government, he got El Mencho. That's a heck of a record. If I was the Ayatollah Khamenei, would I be a little bit nervous?
Yeah, there was a $15 million bounty on El Mencho. So he's been out there among the most wanted men involved in these cartel activities for quite a long time. And of course, the great credit goes to the Mexican military here as well. And actually, as we're talking about Claudia Sheinbaum, the President Jillian Turner, our State Department anchor and reporter, just flagged that she put out a statement talking about how this did result in various blockades and other reactions, and also offering praise to the Mexican Army, the National Guard, the armed forces, which brings me back to what you brought up at the very beginning, Mark, where you talked about the pressure that President Trump, at the very beginning of this new second administration, put on not just Mexico, but on Canada in redefining what these cartels mean broadly, that they're terrorist organizations, and kind of drawing.
And they are indeed terrorist organizations, and we're understanding slowly, right? The whole world is understanding we can't live alongside terrorist organizations. But watch, and mark my words, watch the lefties, watch the pro-Palestinians start to find a way. I'm marking it right now. Remember, mark my words, they will find a way to justify the cartels. They terrorize the civilians. Watch, mark Tall's words, Papa Tall's words. Remember what I say here. When they start laying down the hammer, if Trump does it and Claudia Sheinbaum gets her shit together and actually does it, when they start massacring the cartels and innocent civilians die, because that's how war works. Innocent civilians always die during war. It sucks. It's horrible, but it happens. Watch. They're going to start being like, liberation for the cartels. Unconfirmed narcos are digging up parts of the highway in Mexico, like actually tearing into the road. Instead of only burning cars and blocking lanes, they're literally turning roads permanently useless.
Pasan pura verga, mira. Algo bien. Pasan pura verga, mira.
That's insane. And they have so much power to basically do whatever they want. It's basically like its own little country, the cartel universe living inside of Mexico and a lot of parts of Central and South America. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt just confirmed that the U.S. provided intel to the Mexican military in the operation that led to the killing of leader cartel of the CJNG cartel. The United States provided intelligence support to the Mexican government in order to assist with an operation in Talpalpa, Jalisco, Mexico, in which Nemesio El Mencho Osguera Cervantes, an infamous drug lord and leader with the Jalisco New Generational Cartel, was eliminated. El Mencho was a top target for the Mexican and United States government as one of the top traffickers of fentanyl into our homeland. Last year, President Trump rightfully designated the Jalisco New Generational Cartel as a foreign terrorist organization because that's exactly what it is. In its operation, these 3 additional cartel members were killed, they were wounded, and 2 were arrested. President Trump is very clear the United States will ensure narco-terrorists sending deadly drugs to our homeland are forced to face the wrath of justice they have long deserved. And here's the $10 million bounty. 10 million, right? Yeah, 10 million for Nemesio Ruben Osguera Cervantes El Mencho. So there it is. Here he is. There's the infamous cartel drug lord out of commission, probably by Trump's doing. Throwback: President Trump on Mexican President Sheinbaum. The cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico.
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico. Well, it wasn't.
If you guys look at the story of Nayib Bukele, the El Salvadorian, right? Is El Salvador or Nicaragua? Oh, wait, let's see. I want to make sure I'm not Nayib Bukele. El Salvador, I was right. Nayib Bukele is actually of Palestinian Christian descent, but born and raised in El Salvador. An incredible young politician who actually visited Israel, wants to open up ties, fixed El Salvador by laying down the law, laying down an iron fist, and took El Salvador from one of the most dangerous countries. I have a friend who I used to travel with when I lived in Mexico. She's half El Salvadorian, half Mexican. And she said that she really couldn't go back to El Salvador and visit her family there as a kid because it was so freaking dangerous. It was just immensely dangerous to be there. And I remember how much just in the last 10 years has happened in my lifetime as I was traveling. El Salvador has changed immensely and has really shaped up. And Nayib Bukele is one of the main reasons. If Claudia Sheinbaum could take the same initiative, obviously with Mexico it's a lot bigger, way more people, a lot harder, take the same initiative as Nayib Bukele and work with President Donald Trump to fix Mexico, you'd be looking at a totally different future. And I understand Trump's perspective with this totally. If we have complete porous borders on the north and completely porous borders on the south, and neither one of the politicians on neither Trudeau nor Claudia Sheinbaum are willing to do anything, right? Trudeau wasn't going to do it for a long time. Mark Carney's not doing anything about it either. If neither of the countries on our borders are willing to change themselves to help the situation for our region, we're in an issue. That's a really big problem for all of us living here, for all of us living there. I don't really live there anymore. I'm a citizen, but I don't really live there anymore. And I understand Trump's hardline perspective that he has on this because something needs to be done. I've brought this perspective multiple times when it comes to Palestine, right? As Israelis, we've had this long-winded ideology that if we just let Palestinians be, They'll fix themselves, put them in their own state, give them their borders. They'll fix themselves. They won't cause any issues, and they'll be a good neighbor to us because that's all they want. But that's not how the world works. Sometimes you think you're being a good friend by leaving somebody be, but actually your intervention is needed to be a good friend. And for us, and I really believe this, for America to be a good friend right now to Canada and to Mexico, to help the country and to also help ourselves, there needs to be a heavy United States involvement in both sectors. Both Canada and Mexico need to open their arms up to the United States of America's intervention because they are failing at running this project on their own. They need America to help them change for the better. And I sincerely hope, because I like Mexico. Canada, I'm less of a fan of. Everybody knows this. I've talked about this openly. I visited Canada once or twice in my life. I don't really like it. Mexico's a wonderful country. Canada's too fucking cold for me. But I'm sure there's plenty of wonderful people in Canada, all across Canada, who want better lives, who want a better reality, and we should be helping those people change the reality on the ground. I'll see you guys the next one. I love you long time.